these guys have taken over the Malheur, I think that's how it's pronounced, Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. This was established in 1908 by Republican President Theodore Roosevelt to protect, I'm quoting now from the Audubon Society of Portland, to protect the vast populations of water birds that were being decimated by wanton killing by the plume trade. Back in 1908, these birds are being killed for their feathers, for mostly ladies' hats. The 188,000-acre refuge represents some of the most important bird habitat in the Pacific Flyway. It is one of the crown jewels of the National Wildlife Refuge system and belongs to all Americans. In 2013, the refuge adopted a long-term management plan developed through an inclusive collaborative process that brought together the local communities, tribes, conservation groups, state and federal agencies, and other stakeholders. These stakeholders have continued to work together to implement this strategy, which includes one of the biggest wetland restoration efforts ever undertaken. The occupation of Malheur by armed, out-of-state militia groups puts one of America's most important wildlife refuges at risk. It violates the most basic principles of the public trust doctrine and holds hostage public lands and public resources to serve the very narrow political agenda of the occupiers. I would say it's not even a political agenda. I really and truly believe that these guys, they saw how much money Cliven Bundy was able to make by standing up to the federal government and getting good press on Fox so-called news. And they're doing the same thing. They're just like, hey, you know, there's money to be. This is like Ben Carson's campaign. When it came out 2-3 weeks ago that of the something like 28 or 29 million bucks that he had raised, over 20 million of it had been paid to his consultants. Everybody realized that the thing was a scam. I mean, one of his leading advisors was Armstrong Williams, who's famous as a scammer, and he was placing favorable articles for the Bush administration in the press and being paid for it. I mean, this is just a violation of every kind of journalistic effort or ethic, but it's a scam. And so, it's, so here we are. But also the way that these guys are being treated with kid gloves in terms of the press. Nobody's calling them terrorists. I guarantee you, if they were wearing what's the name for the cloth on the head that a Muslim man wears? Kafka? No, that's whatever it is. Anyhow, if they were identifiable as Muslims, or if they were African Americans, and they were talking about, wow, we're gonna fulfill the vision of fill in the blank, Malcolm X or somebody. Malcolm X, actually, this wasn't his vision, but we're going to create our own nation here. It's this is our land, So whatever kind of rhetoric. Do you know how quickly the government would be in there with guns in their faces? And Fox News would not help them raise money. In fact, I would go so far as to say that if it weren't for Fox so-called news helping these really, really fringe people, not just the Cliven Bundys of the world, but, the Stephen Kings of the world, the Michelle Bachmans of the world, the Sarah Palins of the world, all of them promoted by this know-nothing news network that revels in the fact that they're wrong more than any other television network. People who watch Fox News actually believe more things that aren't true than people who watch no news at all. So anyway, why aren't they being called terrorists? Why aren't they being called insurrectionists? Why aren't they being called rebels? This is a rebellion. Why isn't this not being referred to as the opening salvo of the next civil war? Well, I can answer that question. It's not a state that's doing it. It's a bunch of crackpots. What I don't understand, and maybe this is already happening, right? But why don't we just cut off the winter is coming. It's extreme eastern Oregon. It's like the west side of Idaho. It's getting cold. It's getting very cold and unpleasant there. This is the winter in eastern Oregon. This kind of high desert territory, or not quite, but cut off the power. Turn off their utilities. Turn off their water supply. Turn off their electricity. These guys, They're all walking around with beer bellies. It's like, they're the natural habitat for most of these men is a lazy boy recliner in front of a TV set with a Budweiser on the table next to him. Their natural habitat is not out in the woods like this. And the family whose natural habitat was out in the woods, the Hammond family, the father and son who are going back to prison, they were out there illegally poaching deer, and they lit a fire that burned 138 acres of national forest to conceal their illegal poaching. And that's why they're being sent to prison. In fact, one of the kids who helped them set the fire was running around dropping matches all over the forest, and Mr. Hammond said, light the whole thing up. This kid got caught behind the fire lines, and the only way he survived the fire that he was helping them set was by burying himself in a creek, laying in the running water as the fire swept over the top of him. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.